we believe is the best way to do it was that it had to be done gradually. I think that when you do take over, the employee should say something along the lines of, oh, I thought he already owned the business. We're in a spot right now where all the decisions that we're making, myself and my father, we're doing them together. So when he does decide to say, hey, I want to take a couple steps back, employees should be just saying, oh, Peter was already making a lot of the decisions.
Welcome to the Family Biz Show, where family business leaders become family legacy architects. Each week, we bring you bold conversations, practical tools, and generational insights to help you build a self-operating business, a coordinated family wealth plan, and a sustainable legacy that lasts. This is the Family Biz Show. Build the flywheel, protect the legacy.
Welcome, everybody, to the Family Biz Show. I'm your host, Michael Palumbos from Family Wealth and Legacy here in Rochester, New York. And today we have Peter Roberti from Adrian Jules Clothiers. Correct? I got it right? Yeah. There we go. And Adrian Jules is really cool because it's around the corner from where I live. So I know right where the shop is. And for a bunch of years, you guys have done a car show in that parking lot, which I have been to and seen some of the most incredible cars that were out there. Matter of fact, one of my buddies was in your show a few years ago. So
awesome.
Yeah, it's probably the most expensive collection of cars in one parking lot ever. So Peter, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
You're second generation or third generation?
Third generation. Yep.
Okay. So one of the things we like to hear first is, how did you get involved in the business? Were you straight out of college? Was it, I was on the shop floor, right from the get-go, or I went and did 5 other things first and then finally said I can't get away from the family business? What was your story?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I got involved when I was 14 years old. So my grandfather, we do shows around the country. So we do 3 to 4 shows around the country where we go and we go buy fabrics and we go do all of our purchasing. One show, I was like 14, 15 years old. It was in Las Vegas, and we were doing our buying, and in our showroom, we have bolts of fabric on the wall. And my grandfather bought me a black fabric and a red fabric, and he said, this summer I'm going to teach you how to make a suit. So I made a black suit with a red vest in our factory. So our factory is in Irondequoit.
Okay.
We've got about 60, 70 tailors there. And his shop, so the factory is on 2 different floors, and his shop, he was technically retired, but he still came in every single day, and his shop was above the factory. And I spent the whole summer learning how to make clothing, and I grew up in the factory. So I grew up in the factory. So
Very
that's
cool.
how I got involved. Yeah.
Very cool. Did you go away to school? Did you, and then you came back, or did you have a job, something else in between?
So I went to school. So I wanted to go to the Fashion Institute of Technology, FIT.
Sure.
But my grandfathers and my dad were like, you should go to a business school, or you should go to school, go to college, and so on and so forth. So I went to school, and my dad's like, before you start coming on full time, you need to work somewhere else and have some experience, and then you can come on full time. So I did. I did a little bit of, I dabbled in a few different things, and then I ended up back at Adrian Jules. And
how much time did he make you stay away before he let you come back?
I think the whole office became clients of Adrian Jules, so he's like, yeah. So
I love it.
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun. It was a good experience, though.
Yeah, and everybody has a different experience as they're going through that. Some people saw what grandpa and dad or mom and dad were doing,
Sure.
and they're like, I don't want to do this. And then they get to in their 30s, and they're like, oh my gosh, I miss it so much, And so it's just always unique to hear other people's stories.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I think with anything, it's got to feel natural. Like, I've always been passionate about it, but it was never forced. It was just naturally like, this just feels right. Still to this day, it's just like, it's a lot of fun. And we get to make a big impact on people.
And it's, a lot of people talk about nepotism in the business. And this isn't one of those things for you, especially, you can just hear it's not nepotism. It's because 14 years old, you're making your first suit. And so you started to grow up around this, and you're like, this is what my family does. And so that just was a natural fit for you to join the business. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome.
So let's talk about the business. To walk us through some of the history. Your grandfather, you already said, started the business. Tell us about what did it look like the first, 15 years, how old is the business today, and
Sure.
that kind of stuff.
So we are over 60 years old.
Okay.
The clothes are still made right here in Rochester, made in America. We've got about 60 tailors there. My grandfather started the company in his basement. He started the company in his basement, literally he had a partner that eventually got out of the business, couldn't afford to change the name, so he kept the name Adrian Jules. And he grew, so the business was just B2B, meaning that it was all private label. So it was all private label. So we still do private label. Clothing made, so say you were to start a shop in North Carolina and you need someone to make the clothes, that's where Adrian Jules comes into play. Okay. It doesn't say Adrian Jules on there, but we make the clothing. So it was all private label. And my dad started the retail business. So the shops, we started it. It was just an extension of the factory. And then we moved over to Monroe Avenue, and then now across the street, and we've opened up other shops since. So
how many stores are there today?
We've got 2 locations in Rochester and in Buffalo. We've got other sales reps that are selling our product, but no shops like what we have in town here.
And so that was the curveball that was thrown at me when I was doing a little bit of behind the scenes. I only know you as the retail store.
Yeah.
Right around the corner from me. When you look at the business today, what percentage of the business is retail versus B2B?
We're probably 66% in the retail store. The rest of it is wholesale.
So you've really grown switching from the wholesale to retail.
I mean, listen, I think that it's just with anything. I think you got to be diversified. There's certain parts of the business that do really well some years. Some areas need a little bit of support, and everything kind of continues to work, and as long as everything's rolling in the right direction.
Perfect. Love it. Talk about transition. Your dad comes into the business. How old? Same idea, same kind of a plan that you.
Well, he says the only other job he's ever had was he delivered mail.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think. I'm sorry. I'm not sure. Is the question about transition or how's?
I'll get to the transition. I'm just curious. So that was his only job as well.
Yeah, same with my uncle. So my dad and my uncle, who, they've grown it. My cousin Alexa and myself now have a vision of where we see the business. But my dad and my uncle, they're amazing. I think that they've done. And they still support all our vision and where we see the company now. And they're still involved in the business as well. But I think that they've done an amazing job. They're awesome.
That's great. Transition 1, grandfather to his boys. What did that look like? What are the stories behind that? What do you know about the succession plan that they went through?
I think it's important that. At that time when they were transitioning, my grandfather was still involved. He was going to the shop 3 weeks before he passed away. So he was still involved. I think that their transition was longer than they thought it should be.
Sure.
In terms of with him still being involved and everything like that. But I think that everybody was in the right seat in terms of all of his, my dad's brothers and sisters. If that makes sense.
Sure. So how many family members at that time are involved in the business?
So my grandmother was still involved, my grandfather, aunt, uncle, and my dad.
So 5 family members in G2. Well, you're three family members in G2. Yeah. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And as you're going through that we're going back. When did your grandfather pass?
He passed in 2016, I think it was.
Yeah. So he was still involved, like you said, up until 3 weeks before.
We call it MWA, management by walking around.
Have not heard that one. Everybody catch that. MWA, management by walking around.
So he would, there's something about it when the founder's walking around on the shop floor, people just sit up a little bit straighter. They just
100%.
So that was, he made his rounds.
Yeah. And again, I want to recognize that that's very, very normal. It's great when a founder is sitting there saying, I'm going to be out here at 62 or I'm going to be out here at 65 and I've got everything in line to do that. But when they found a business, especially, what generation was your grandfather in America?
He's first generation.
Yeah. So think about that. Yeah. He comes over, right? Himself and your grandmother. And now he starts a business here out of his garage, out of his basement. So that you're not letting go of that.
But yeah, there's definitely an emotional attachment that, something that he built that, and my dad and my uncle helped, build it as well. But, he started it. So,
Right.
I mean, there's a definite emotional attachment that, just took longer to hand off, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and perfectly okay. I love that. We see it all the time. And the other thing is that the talking about handing off and talking about transition planning and thinking about how do we get this to the next generation wasn't something that was a really talked about skill. It was done through generations and everybody did it, but it wasn't talked about in schools. It wasn't,
Sure.
You're not going to school. There wasn't any family business, programs back when he was going through and starting the company in, 60 years ago, 30 years ago. It's like the last 20, 30 years, a lot has changed and there's no way he would have known those things.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
good, hats off to him. All right. So now you've got your dad, your uncle, your uncle's daughter, and yourself. Those are the 4 family members in there.
Yeah.
Okay. What is
Yeah.
okay? As the formal transition happened, when did that happen? What did that look like?
Well, I think it's been going on. In my opinion, and in the way that we believe is the best way to do it, was that it had to be done gradually. When we do, I think that when you do take over, the employee should say something along the lines of, "Oh, I thought he already owned the business." Versus, so it should be just done gradually. So I think that we're in a spot right now where, all the decisions that we're making, myself and my father, like on the retail division, we're doing them together. So that way, when we do say, "Hey, this," when my dad does decide, which he'll probably work for the rest of his life. But when he does decide to say, "Hey, I want to take a couple steps back," the employees should be just saying, "Oh, Peter was already making a lot of the decisions," if that makes sense.
100%. When you look at the organization, I think it's pretty unique for these founders to come in. I started it in my basement, just myself. Then I have a partner. Myself and my partner start this in the basement. And in 2016, your grandfather passed. How many employees does the company have at this point?
It's a good question. I think that it was probably around the same amount of employees, but just different. No, I mean, we've got more employees now, but he probably had around 80-ish employees, I think, or so when he passed.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that neighborhood.
So, I mean, again, I just want to say hats off to your grandparents. That's 80 jobs, plus them, and then the other family members, that are in there. It's pretty amazing that, here's this, immigrant comes in, needs to provide for his family. They need to do something for their family. And then when, he passes, there's 80 people that are impacted by all the things that are going on.
Yeah, it's
A lot to be proud of.
Yeah, that's why I think, I think that each generation goes through different things. And I think that, what my grandfather did, I think, he gets to touch a lot of lives. I mean, he did more on the B2B side. So I think that he got to create really good, strong relation. I think we do have strong relationship with our employees now, but I think he really, I mean, a lot of those, he still has, there's still some employees that are still, when my grandfather was alive, that it still work for us today.
Yeah.
Still work for us today. And I think that, he left a very, big impact on their life.
How many employees today?
Just under 100.
That's great. Fabulous. Talk with me, if you will, about management styles. So like you said, the business has evolved. Your grandfather towards the end was MWA, management by walking around. I love that. What about your father and your uncle? What was the transition like for them? What is their management style? And then what do you see different between you and your cousin as you're building things and thinking about things?
Yeah, I think everyone's got their own style. I think that my dad and my uncle, their styles are different.
Oh, even together.
Yeah, their styles are different.
Okay.
Because they run 2 different divisions. So my uncle and my cousin Alexa run the factory and the B2B side, and myself and my father run the retail division. So I think that my dad's style is very passionate. I think that he leads with his heart and makes his decisions with his heart. And I think that he gives back. His employees are first, his clients are first, and he's made sacrifices both with his family and decisions that he's made. And also, he's really built a business because that division didn't exist. So it was similar to what my grandfather did. My dad kind of did the same thing. So
Almost like founder number 2.
yeah.
When you're starting a whole new division that is different, it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah. So he still has pulse on everything, though. Yeah,
Okay.
He still wants to be involved in everything.
And your uncle, what's his style?
I would say that his is where my dad might lead with more. I mean, my uncle's very passionate about the business too, but I would say it's more data and numbers driven.
It's a good balance. And that's that, partnerships, in order for them to work, if you're doing the same thing and you both do things the same way, you don't get that, what I like to call healthy conflict.
Yeah.
It's the
Absolutely.
healthy conflict comes from, having differences, opinions, and being respectful at the same time.
Absolutely.
So that's
Absolutely.
great. When you look at you and Alexa,
Yeah.
as you're going through things, how would you categorize? Are you guys different in your styles of things?
I would say we're very similar. I mean, I would say that the way that I think that my cousin Alexa, she does an amazing job. She runs 2 divisions, and she's very data, technology. I think what we both do very well with is bringing out the best in people. We want to empower our employees and our team, so they all understand what the goal is, what the vision is. Everyone's rowing in the same direction, and really get them to want to rise up to the occasion. And I think that we both do that really well. She does a better job at analyzing, data and numbers, where I've made mistakes on, leading with my heart and my gut. And I think that I've consciously wanted to do a better job of, as we continue to grow and we get further away from Rochester, we're going to open up another store in Saratoga. It's like, all right, we've got to really have our numbers and our data, dialed in, if that makes sense.
I think of that whenever we're making changes or thinking about a new division or a new project. Fire bullets first. I think it's Jim Collins that talks about it. Fire bullets first, then cannonballs. Once we know that the bullets are hitting, then you can spend the money on the cannonballs. And that's where the data comes in. Is like, is this data supporting the fact that the bullets are going to hit there?
Absolutely.
And now we can throw the cannonball at it.
Absolutely.
That's great. It sounds like you two are going to be a really good team together. That's fabulous.
I think it's super important that you have communication. You gotta have tough conversations, challenging conversations. That when we're at work, we've got our work hat on. But when we're at the family parties, we've got our family hat on.
Nice.
So we got to make sure that it's tough in family business to separate those things.
I'm sure that you learned some things from your grandfather, your father, your uncle. Talk, if you wouldn't mind, were there any stories that they said, here's some tough times and here's how we got through them? Is anything come to your mind when I say that?
Well, I mean, I know we've been through some tough times, and I think it's with, one of the things I think that we've, our core is, in our DNA is that we've always focused on what the best is. So whether it be the best talent that we could find from a craftsmanship and hiring tailors, master tailors, to the best fabrics, to the best work that we could do. So we've always competed on what the best is, and we've never deviated from that. And I think that's been our core DNA for ever since I can remember with my grandfather. That's always what he preached. He'd have me doing the inseams and outseams of the pants, and we'd reap it and have to do it again. Because he wanted me to, we had to be the best.
Right.
And I think that with that combination, in addition to that, and the combination of being consistent and disciplined and staying true to that, I think that it allows us to continue to attract those people that want that, that quality of service. And I think that the stories that about whether it be a tough time, that's what's got us through it, is being consistent, disciplined, being willing to adapt to tougher time, or to adapt to changes, and admitting that sometimes that, hey, there might be a better way, and I might be wrong. So, and being vulnerable.
Yeah, I think, to be around 60 years, obviously, we've all been, anybody has gone through things. My father so I'm second generation, but he started in the 70s and the business wasn't anything like he looks at what I'm doing. He's like, I don't understand. It's not even the same business that I was in.
Sure.
He started off as a life insurance salesperson.
Yeah.
And became a financial advisor, moved to the wealth advisory, and today, and he served a lot of family businesses and helped them dramatically. Did a really great job and laid a foundation for a serve first kind of philosophy that we've always had, that he learned. And that was what attracted him to the company, was they if you serve first, at last and always, the pay will take care of itself.
Percent.
Just serve and you'll be okay. Don't sell. And that my father's like, oh, good, because I'm a horrible salesperson. But I can coach people and I can serve people. And he built a great career out of it. The banking industry and the investment industry, the walls between them broke down. And so lots of different things, so now you've got insurance and investments and, savings, money markets and all of that stuff kind of changed.
Sure.
What never changed for him and what he taught me was that at the end of the day, it's, the family is who you serve, and the family has to have a vision and objectives of what they're trying to accomplish. And then if you can look at their documents first, their taxes and their legal stuff, and say, if we can fix it that way, if an attorney can make a tweak here to make your situation better, an accountant can make a tweak there, but great. And then then you go to the investments, and then it's like, finally, if you can't fix it any other way, I've got a buy-sell agreement between brothers, and
Sure.
I don't have the cash to buy you out. If something happens, I'm going to want some life insurance. And that was really unique. I think his answer as he got older and moved forward, life insurance was just kind of like one of the toolkits, one of the tools that he had. It wasn't the only tool where, kind of unique for somebody that started the way he did to not always be, life insurance first, so to speak.
Sure.
The business has evolved. Talk about how your grandfather started as a founder. I would imagine it was I'm gonna be the best. I'm gonna create great product. I'm gonna get the most talented people, and we're just gonna grow. He was about survival, especially the first 20 years,
Sure.
10, 15 years. As you're starting these things, once he knew it was there, it was probably a lot of the same planning, a lot of the same thought process of what got me here needs to stay in place. My gut says, and feel free to tell me if I'm
Sure.
wrong, but your father and your uncle started to think a little differently about planning. And I would even imagine that you and Alexa have some even different thoughts compared to your uncle and your father. And again, I'm not talking about how we plan for the business, what we're thinking about. Some of the data wasn't even available back then. But walk us through that, because I think the reason why I'm asking is a lot of families may not be looking for where are those pivot moments, where do we have to evolve, and how do we be thinking about this thing. I'm just looking to see you've got a great family that did these things.
Yeah, I think that I think everybody's, when you're throughout the 60 years, I think the the resources that myself and my cousin Alexa have now versus what my grandfather had are completely different.
Right.
Not only from a financial standpoint, just with technology alone, it's just completely different. And I think that in my opinion, if anybody was running a business that says, I'm just going to do what I did last year and expect the same results, I mean, that's just you can't operate like that. I mean, there's components that we use and a foundation that we use that I think that could translate from year to year. But I think that we meet once a month and we talk about, hey, what things do we need to pivot? We talk about numbers. What areas are what areas needs more support, and so on and so forth. I mean, we meet every single Monday still. But I think that what my dad and my uncle did, I think you're right. My grandfather, again, I wasn't around when he was there, but I think it was more about I've heard stories that he would drive to Detroit to deliver garments, sell the garments, then he would come back home in the same day, make them overnight, just so he could put food on the table.
Yeah.
And I've done stuff similar to that, and I've had family members that say that I'm absolutely out of my mind. But I think that and then come to my dad and my uncle, I think that from a planning standpoint, we wouldn't be here today if they just continued to do the same things over and over every year. So I think we're always constantly tweaking, analyzing what's working, what areas could we potentially grow in, and like I said before, being diversified. We're looking at now is like, okay, what other dealers, because dealers, that don't have a succession plan, could we possibly help, jump on board, and we could, because we don't want to lose them. We don't want to lose we don't want to lose them as a dealer, but could they come on board? Could we offer the support from a back end, and all they have to do is just sell clothing, so we're looking at stuff like that. So
totally different model.
Yeah, different business model, but I think that you've got to get creative with that. You have to, we're fortunate enough to have the resources to take these at bats, and then as long as we don't make the same mistake twice, because my dad and my uncle would, that would be a tough conversation, but we tried to buy a business, and but it didn't go exactly how we thought it was going to go, but it was a great learning experience, and we now understand based on that. It's like, okay, this is the vision. This is where we want to be in 3 years. We want to make some tweaks. If we're going to look at buying another business, it's got to have this, and this, and we've got a clear path, a clear plan and direction of what qualifies us to want to engage in a business.
Sure. Talk about, if you will, and I have no idea whether you've done any of this through the years, but like Dad and your uncle, you and Alexa, working with coaches or getting outside, information and knowledge. All of us, whatever your industry you're in, there's probably plenty of industry stuff. Is there, I'm assuming that you're involved in a lot of industry organizations. Sure. And then what non-industry things do you tap into? So
there's an organization, in our industry, it's called the CTDA, so Custom Tailors Designers Association.
Okay.
I'm actually the president of the organization. What we do is it's like continuing education. So honing in on your skills from fabrics to measuring and so on and so forth. So think about it as if like an advisor would go to these seminars, and people would talk, and you'd be meeting with people and so on and so forth. So it's a great organization. So from an industry standpoint, that's what we do we do that 4 times a year.
Okay. When did you start as the president of that organization?
2 years ago.
And how long have you belonged to it?
We've been there as long as I can remember.
It was so. I'm having this reaction because this is just like my father. My father would be like, Michael, you've got to get involved in the organization so that you can keep your fingers on the pulse.
Yeah.
No, he said you also learn from your competitors. You learn from colleagues. And it's just a great way of doing it. And then there's a time when it's time for you to give back and start moving up those seats. So,
Oh, I know. Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot. It's very rewarding from a teaching standpoint, but it's definitely a lot of work too.
100%.
But yeah, so that from an industry standpoint.
Sure.
And then I think it's important. You got to have the right team and the right people around you. And I think that we've always talked about having a board, but I think that, I don't think we're necessarily big enough to have something like that at this point. But I think it's important to have the right people around you that knows enough about your business and the numbers, but isn't connected from an emotional standpoint.
Right. We call that coaching. And I always tell there's no Olympic team. There's no football team that has made it to the Super Bowl. You don't win the gold medal in the Olympics without having a coach.
Sure.
And the coach does exactly what you're talking about. Not emotional. What are the blind spots that I might be missing? And I know enough about running business because all businesses are the same. I can't do fabric. I don't know that piece, but I do know the people side of it. I know the management side of it. I know systems and processes and meeting rhythms and those pieces. And that's one of the things that I think it becomes really important that business owners do tap into outside knowledge, especially outside of their industry, because what could I be utilizing? How could I be utilizing what they use in this, food industry or the hospitality industry in my business that, just might translate differently? Speaking of that, how's AI impacted your business? Are you using AI? Is it a part of your business?
I think that there's going to be, yes, we do use AI.
Okay.
And I think that, we gave a talk not too long ago and back in August. But I think that as a custom clothier, I think that it will enhance us as a custom clothier. It'll give us tools to become better at what we do. So I look at it as always like, hey, how could I use this to leverage my time and use it as a resource and always continuing to learn about it. I think all of our team members, I mean, we always are talking about, okay, could we automate this? Is there something that we could do from an AI standpoint? Is there anything that's out there that would help us, leverage, leverage our resources to become more efficient? So we're using it a bunch, and I'm a full believer in it.
And I think it's interesting because I'm surprised when somebody says, well, I don't see where I'm going to use AI in my business today. Yeah. And I think that's every business is going to be impacted, mostly in a positive way. I think mostly positive.
I believe so. I think that from in our industry, if they don't embrace it, I think they'll be left behind, unfortunately. Or they'll seek out a company like ours that is embracing it, and then they'll become part of our team.
Got it. Taking a look at the business today, if you're looking at the challenges that you're facing, given the world that we live in today, what would you say are two of the challenges that you as a team are focused on and working, accomplish or get past?
Yeah, I think that, one of them is definitely, people are, from a tailoring standpoint, we've got an amazing team, and the average age, I think, is low 40s in terms of our tailors, which
that's amazing.
We're very, very fortunate to have an amazing team there. But I think that, people aren't growing up and saying they want to become a tailor. I think a lot of the tailors that we have are all, some of the people are family members, meaning that their dad or their mom was a tailor and they might have 3 kids, and one of the 3 kids also wants to be a tailor, and they're working in our shop too. Yeah. So we have a lot of that, but I think it's definitely a challenge because as we continue to grow, there's a capacity issue. If we don't get more tailors, we have to automate, or something's got to give. So, so that's definitely a challenge, big challenge. Another challenge I think is as we grow, I think that one of the things that we believe is that whether you go into our Rochester showroom, or you go into our Buffalo showroom, or one of our gals in Nashville, or the store in Saratoga, everybody should have the same experience. Mm-hmm. So maintaining from a process standpoint. So from a training standpoint and an execution standpoint, I think that that's another challenge. Is as you grow, I'm not willing to sacrifice the experience that the client has and also the quality of what they're going to get from us on a garment standpoint. So that's another challenge.
You mentioned that, and immediately I think of Disney. Walt Disney World has a training about the Disney experience. The Ritz-Carlton has, and so that's going outside of our expertise and leveraging, some knowledge out there. I've sent some of my team through the Disney school, and we are talking about, do we want to move over and check out the Ritz-Carlton school to understand, because the client experience today has changed. Our competition isn't always the other clothiers. It isn't always the other tailors, or other wealth advisors. It's the experience that they had at Starbucks, or the experience that they had at the Ritz-Carlton, or, just other experiences when they know what good experience looks like. And so, getting that from other places, I just think is really...
Oh, yeah. Experience, I lay up at night thinking about experience. That is... from an experience standpoint, every spot that I go to, whether it be a restaurant, I've been very fortunate, gone to a lot of very nice places, but everything that especially if it's the first time that I'm going there, is like, okay, what little things can I take away to bring it back to Adrian Jules? Because, I think you're right, that an experience, that is what's going to separate us from everybody else.
Talk about the vision. What is the next, What do you see in the next 3? How far out do you think as a company?
We've got 10-year plans, we've got 5 years, and we've got 3-year. But I would say right now, our 3-year vision is when people think of custom clothing in Western New York, we have to be the one. Like, period. In Rochester, Buffalo, and in Saratoga, Syracuse area. When they think about custom clothing, we need to be the one.
Love
period.
it. That's a very direct and easy to say to all the employees. So, I say that to people all the time. Keep the vision, simple. Yeah. That's pretty simple.
Yeah.
I love it. What else? What are the other pieces of the puzzle that need to come together for you guys as you're doing your planning? I think it's fun to talk about it,
Sure.
because if somebody else is going through something just like this, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I think that, one of the things that we always talk about, we always want to, I think that, like, from a leadership standpoint, just deciding to want to be better and just making the decision that I've decided that I'm going to be better for you. If I'm talking to one of my employees, so I always I want to talk to my team and say, hey, how could I be better? What ways can I communicate to you better? And I think that just sometimes it's just making the decision to decide to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that really has consciously doing that has helped us grow and really have a real tight team that understands that, hey, I've got your back. We're not going anywhere, and really feel that everyone's part of the team.
Do you have siblings that aren't in the business? Does Alexa have siblings that aren't in the business?
Yeah, we've got So my cousin Alexa's got a sister, Adria. She's a doctor, and then we also own Rubino's, which my mom's involved in that with my uncle, and my sister's involved in that.
Love Rubino.
Yeah. And then my brother has a business called Cheese and Charcuterie that he owns as well.
Love it. So a family of entrepreneurs and business owners. I love it.
So we've so it's a lot of fun.
Talk about the family working in the business. How does the communication work such that you're getting your vision clear? What does it look like when we don't agree? How do we get through, what are your, levers, or what are your trainings, or what are your agreements as a family to say, all right, here's how we're going to do this?
Well, I think it's a lot easier said than done, but I think that the longer you wait to have a conversation, the more it builds up. So if something's bothering you, if you just, okay, I'm going to talk about it today. We're going to talk about it tomorrow. And then, there's less buildup. So it's just, there's less buildup. There's less anxiety. And I think that, if anything's, bothering us or something that's like, hey, I don't know if I necessarily agree with something like, or whatever it might be.
Sure.
We talk about it. We talk through it. Versus if it's something just, building up and all of a sudden weeks turn into months and, it's just, and then all of a sudden, something is small, something small sets off and, something that was bigger that happened 3 months ago. And then all of a sudden everyone's in a heated debate, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I think it's important to talk about it like right then and there versus building it up. So from a communication standpoint, that's one of the rules that we kind of go by. If there's a tough conversation, we always like to have somebody there to, kind of talk through it with us.
Good. You say you had 10, 5, 3, I'm assuming a 1-year plan as well. When you were putting that together, I have to believe that you didn't all agree on it. So how do you work to build that stuff out? Does that make sense?
Well, so we've got basically like think about it as like an umbrella company. Then each essentially family member is responsible for divisions of the business. So when I'm talking about my vision of my or my dad and I's division and where I see it going, I use Alexa and my Uncle Arnie and even my dad as like, hey, how do you feel about this? Like I use them as like a board almost, like to get their thoughts on it.
So there's a buy-in from the family. You're bouncing your ideas off of them.
Exactly.
But each of you is kind of running your own division, and
Yeah.
it's like, here's where I'm going. If somebody thought you were going to drive off a cliff, they're going to tell you.
Yeah.
And they're going to put the guardrails up,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah, they might say something like my we're going to hire somebody else, and my uncle's like, you may want to think about this, or I don't know, that you may want to just double check those numbers. Like, it'd be questions like that. Like,
Love it.
Versus, like that's how, like, hey, I hear you. My uncle, my dad, like, I hear you. I like your thoughts on it, but you may want to double check a couple things. So that's kind of like, I don't want to get into too much of it, but I think that's how we've always kind of worked together. And I think that there's also been points where, like, hey, I need your guys' help, so I don't know what to do here. I need your guys' help. So it's a good balance of, like, hey, we trust that we could run each division, but also have the support if we need to lean on that.
What is your favorite family tradition that has nothing to do with the business?
Favorite family tradition that has nothing to do with the business? I think the holidays are always super special. Are you talking about, like, my extended family, or just my immediate family?
Yours, the extended?
I feel like every single thing there's it's a new tradition. We've got a son, 3-year-old now, and my wife is, and again, I wouldn't be here without my wife Joelle either. She's an angel that's supported me in every single thing that we've done. But it's funny, every single thing that we've done, it's a new tradition. Like, we're starting a new. She's like, this should be a new tradition. But listen, I just was at my aunt's house. We're doing cookies. The whole family gets together. We do that on both sides of the family. We did it when my grandparents were around, and we're doing them still now. So I think that's it's a good way to start off the holidays. So it's. Those moments, I think, that are super special and make it all worth it.
Nice. Are you a reader? Books?
Books?
Totally counts in some people say that you can't say you read a book if you listen to it. You got to say, I listened to the book. But I'm with you.
More like podcasts and stuff like that. But yeah, we still do. I do some reading. Yeah.
Do you have it, like, if you were talking to somebody that's just coming up into their business or their family business, is there any books that, through the years have been impactful in your career?
I would say if anybody was taking on a business from a leadership standpoint, anything by John Maxwell is a great start.
100% agree.
Is where I would steer them in.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. What haven't I asked you that I should be talking about?
I think that one thing that I will say, I think that I think that our showroom, just from our showroom on Monroe Avenue and in Buffalo, I think that a lot of the individuals, I think sometimes there's a misconception that we do a lot of athletes and famous people. We do our fair share, but a lot of it is just regular people here in Rochester and Western New York that, they might be going for their first interview, or they're, running a company out, or whatever it might be. So I think that, or they're going their wedding and so on and so forth. So I think that when people come into the showroom, I think we're just normal people. We're just regular guys. We've got a full bar in the showroom that, if they want to have a beer, or we bring in local beers and bourbon and stuff like that, we're just normal people. So I think that, I would say that would be one thing that it's the only reason I bring it up. I heard it the other day over the weekend. So
One of the things that I think about is the episode of The Simpsons where Homer goes in and the guy says, make him look great. And there is something about, when you get custom clothes made for you, that it is tailored perfectly for you. And so you're going to look better, feel better, all of the things that, your email tagline, if you look better, you feel better, right? I think there's a lot to be said for that. It's, you can't, I don't know how you could walk in to, expect something that's on the rack to fit you perfectly unless you've got either washboard abs and, which it ain't me anymore. I don't think I ever had them, actually. but you know what I'm saying? It's like, and I was, as I was getting ready for this, podcast episode and this recording, I'm looking at I'm like, well, I can't wear that. I can't wear that. I'm at least got to go here. So, it does. Clothing makes a difference. And I'm sitting here looking at how you come across versus how Michael comes across in the clothing choices, and like, so classy. So classy.
Yeah, it's we've been a part of. I've been a part of a lot of special moments in clients' lives. I mean, I've seen guys come out of the showroom and they've cried when they first and looked in the mirror for the first time. I don't know if it's it's just it's what keeps us going. Is really just being a part of those moments. I think, and we help guys through clothing become the best version of themselves. I mean, I think it's we get to do that every single day. That's
awesome.
what we do. And in addition to that, we have 60, 70 people here in Rochester, New York. And in Buffalo that are.
So they talk about local business and let's talk about it from that standpoint, because this is something I want to hit about just from an economic development standpoint. When you're doing work with Adrian Jules, it's, that money is staying here locally, and the people that are, whether it's the janitor at the store or a master tailor or somebody in between that's, doing those things, those dollars are being spent here, and they're being spent in the other local stores that are here as much as we possibly can. I do love that.
Yeah, I think community is, it's one of our pillars. Giving back to the community. That's, Rochester, Buffalo, New York we've been super grateful, been very good to us and our families. It's, we're happy. We're grateful that all of our clients, support us. We give back as much as we can.
Love it. Favorite part about being in a family business?
Oh, well, it's working with my dad. 100%. And my uncle and my cousin, but I get to work with my dad, every single day. Yeah. How great is that?
That's very cool. Some people wouldn't say that's so great. That might be one of the hardest things.
I think it depends on how you look at it.
Right.
Right? If you take I think it's with anything in life. It's with anything in life. It's how you look at it and what lens you look at it through. I think that, I think about it as like, oh yeah, I've got friends and buddies that their dads are in Arizona and they're working in Washington D.C. and they've got a brother that's in Rochester, New York. Yeah. I get to go to work every single day with my dad.
That's awesome.
If you go in there and like, yeah, there are going to be tough times.
And that's my next question is, what's tough about being in a family business?
I think it's just that it's being in a family business. I think that, separating, like I was talking about it before, is just making sure that, when you're at work, you have your work hat on. And when we're at family parties, we're talking about work too. I say that we're going to have our family hat on, but we're still talking about work.
Sure.
It's because it's just part of who we are. If you think about it, all of us have our own businesses. It's just who we are. Yeah. That's what we love to talk about.
Of course.
Even talking about it to my other family members. Oh, what are you doing? What's working? How's everything going? It's just part of our DNA.
I used to love listening to my grandfather and my father talk about business. Whether it was, my grandfather was a printer, so he worked for Gannett his whole entire life, but then he stopped and was doing, retired, and he was doing sales, advertising sales.
Yeah.
He's selling ads in like a newspaper, which, my dad was, you would call it being in sales back in the 70s and 80s. It wasn't, the financial advisor, the consulting roles kind of happened over time. And so they both would be talking, and I would just love to sit there listening to the two of them.
Yeah, our family dinners we talked about business. Some people now I hear about you got to have what's the term they use? A good balance, a work-life
balance. Yeah.
I'm like, but if I love what I do and I'm passionate about what I do, and this is just like what we do is just an extension of our business and who we are, then aren't I in balance? I don't know, but I think I do work a lot, but I think that it's just part of who we are. So I think that in our Sunday dinners we talked about business. But I think that from challenging times, I think that we've had points that we don't agree on something, or but I think, like I said before, we got to talk about it quick. Talk about it early.
Critical conversations.
Yeah, and have tough conversation. I think it's with any relationship. You've got to, any relationship, you got to expect, to have those tough conversations.
Yeah.
You have to.
Right.
And if you're not willing to have it, in my opinion, I don't think you value the relationship as much.
Good point. I think that's a perfect spot to end. If you're not willing to have the communications, the tough conversations, how well could you be valuing that relationship?
Yeah.
I love that. That's going to go in a quote. as we're doing this thing. Peter, I just want to say thank you. This has been such a great conversation.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
I will I will be seeing you soon. Yeah, I need to be in that showroom and walk out, the same way. I look forward to doing that.
Yeah, no, thank you, Michael. This has been a real treat, absolute pleasure. So thank you for the opportunity. And it's been awesome. So thank you.
Good. I'm Michael Palumbos with Family Wealth and Legacy in Rochester, New York, and you've been listening to the Family Biz Show. Our guest today was Peter Roberti from Adrian Jules Clothiers. Go and check them out. If you're in upstate New York, great. If you're not in upstate New York, check out their website and look at these things, because I'm sure you'll be able to find their clothes, someplace in the country. I know they're in Nashville, and you can call Peter and he'll help you find them. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the Family Biz Show. Connect with us at FamilyWealthAndLegacy.com. Until next time, build the flywheel, protect the legacy.